Hello, everyone. This is Tulani Bridgewater with the Woolfer coming back to you on this lovely Monday. And I am here with award-winning publicist and marketing strategist, Heather Burgett. And she is going to talk to us today a little bit about finding ourselves and how we turn that into a brand, how we communicate that brand, and how we do it in a way that is consistent with the ethos of who we are and our integral selves. So it's a big topic. It's a fun topic, and I'm happy to have Heather on. So Heather, thank you. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited. And I know you have a ton of authors in your community, and I am just proud to announce that officially as a co-author, I now have an international bestseller on Amazon as of yesterday. So I'm like, ooh, good timing to celebrate.
Congratulations. That's incredible.
Thank you.
So we can find your new book is called, and we can find it on Amazon and anywhere fine books are sold.
Yeah, Amazon, The Business of Connections. It's an anthology series. So it's 29 authors who we all actually are executives who met at an Irish castle about a year and a half ago and had an incredible networking event and experience. And then actually this book was born out of that experience.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I'd like to sign myself up for the next one. Thank you.
I'm
nominating myself.
We said, what happens at the castle stays at the castle.
I love that. I love that. So I guess, Heather, to get us started, I think that what would be really helpful, because a lot of people don't actually know, what is a publicist and what does a publicist do? Like, let's start with the fundamentals.
Yeah, a lot of times, when you say PR or publicity or public relations, people kind of glaze over, right? It's like, what exactly is that? How do you get it? How does it work? It's this mysterious thing. And because I've been doing it for over 2 decades now, I'm really finding the language and the way of helping people understand what it is and showing them how to actually get it for themselves. So I teach what I call my Shine strategies, which truly is about raising your online global presence. And if you think about how we actually are seen in the world and the public at large, there's 2 ways. It's through your writing and your speaking. Now, within that, there's a whole myriad and a whole series of things that you can be doing. But what I do is really help people get laser focused on the path that is best for them and put themselves out there in an aligned way with a holistic personal brand that encompasses all of them in a very authentic way, so that they can make the impact and get their message out into the world in a bigger way to reach a larger audience, so that they can reach those goals that they have of whatever it is that they're putting out into the world, getting it in front of more eyeballs.
So I think the really interesting thing, because you've had a career that's covered multiple decades, and I must let everyone know, Heather and I have worked together in the past on some fantastic projects, and she's someone who I admire professionally, but also personally. But the entire universe of public relations has radically transformed. So the online presence, the social media thing, how you engage, I mean, there are myriad platforms on which to do that. And so each one has its own style and it has its own flavor, but they all have to relate back to the core of who you are and what the message is that you're trying to get out. But it used to be, you could have a public relations firm. They would write a press release. They'd send it out to print publications. You'd hopefully know them well enough or schmooze them well enough that they give you some sort of priority and coverage. And then that was sort of it. And now this is a 24/7, 365 engagement. So can you talk a little bit about that entire universe and how expansive it is? And also, I think a lot of people don't know how to pick and choose where they really belong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we often talk now about this new field of digital PR, digital public relations. So really that is the intersection of what you're talking about, which is when people think of traditional public relations, where we're using the power of the media to get them talking and buzzing about you. So through interviews, magazine articles, getting on TV, that kind of thing. And now we have, since this new digital age in the last few years is really just blown up, especially with social media, digital marketing. There are all these other aspects and components. And so PR is the through line, because that ultimately is your image, your reputation, how you are received and perceived in the world. So we bring all of these pieces together and use the PR as the foundation so that your positioning and your messaging is really strong and consistent across all of those platforms. So what I see is a lot of people using social media and they're forgetting about the PR piece. So I always say we want to come back and start with the PR piece because that is what grows the foundation. A lot of people think they're not ready for it, that it's something that comes later, but it actually is the thing that gets you to where you want to go. It's the reverse. So the big things I hear, I'm not ready, I don't have anything to promote, it's not time, but you are the thing to promote. So if you're out there doing something in the world, whether you're an author or a consultant or an expert or a coach or whatever it may be, an artist, you have something to share and get out there. And that's why we need to like really start from the foundational pieces of the ground up. And I have, I take people through a 6-step PR star formula where we really dial that in and get step-by-step clarity on how we're going to package and present you in the world. And we have a lot of steps before we get to the going out, which is, either the media relations or doing the lives, having your live channel, whatever it may be. So there is a process that will actually help people maximize and optimize the success that they have with reaching more people.
Well, and I think that's really a wonderful shift, not only in how public relations and marketing is handled, but it's also something that you really have crafted and drawn on all of your experience to create a program. So you have your traditional public relations work that you do through the Burgett Group, which is exceptionally wonderful. Then you have the brand that is you, meaning that you are often, speaking as an authority on a variety of topics. And then you've crafted PR stars with your Shine strategy that then imparts this information and workshops it through with professionals who, not only need, because it's one thing to hire you, you're literally teaching people how to fish. You know how they say, give a person a fish, they can feed themselves for a day, teach them how to fish, feed themselves for a lifetime. And you're really doing that. So it's, obviously, I know it's a paid program, as well it should be, because all labor should be paid, but it's also that you're really gifting people the ability to then fish for themselves. So talk about how you started, how did that come about? Why did you think that was a great idea? And thank God you did.
Yeah, it was right on time. I'm going into about year 4 of my online programs. So my story is pretty much that I had been doing it for 2 decades, and my grandmother, my last living grandparent, passed away end of 2015, who was someone who was a best friend to me, one of my biggest cheerleaders. And I was literally heartbroken when she died. I mean, I was by her bedside when I felt her spirit leave her body, and it was, wonderful for her to move on at 95 years old, but it was also so heartbreaking. And at that point, I went on a soul-searching trip to Bali. And I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to reach more people. I didn't feel like I was fully shining my light into the world enough or sharing my gifts in a big enough way. I was always kind of behind the scenes and the shadows in my own done for you services, my PR agency business. And it was through this trip that I started seeing all these coaches on Instagram and on all these digital platforms. And I realized, oh my gosh, I can teach what I know. I don't have to go back to the drawing board. I can actually teach what I know, reach more people, make that impact with something that I know I'm already really good at. And that was when I got called deeper into my purpose. And that's when I decided I'm going to start online programs where I can teach consultants, creatives, small business owners, how to actually do this for themselves. And as you said, that is something, once you learn, it's rinse and repeat. So a lot of these skills are translatable across the board in your business. Once you have these tools in your toolbox, you can continue to use them for years to come. So that's where I really started it.
I love that.
And then it wasn't until the pandemic, though, where because I still have, been doing a bit of both and riding the line with my agency and the online business. I was kind of dipping my toe into the online business world. And when the pandemic hit, I really was pulled deeper into my purpose again because I was terrified. And I remembered what my grandparents, 3 of the 4 served in World War II, the last big global crisis. And I thought, if they can enlist in their 20s to go, fight evil, and one of my grandfathers was dropping bombs on Hitler. He was a B-17 pilot. And if one hit, one of those planes got hit, like 10 guys went down. So I thought, oh my gosh, if they can make it through that, I think I can make it through what we're being asked to do right now. And so I decided I'm going to hold my first free 3-day event. I'm going to launch my first 6-month program, like all the things I kept saying I would do. And it was like, this was my chance to enlist. And I do say, if you don't enlist into your purpose, you will be drafted. So I was feeling the draft, and then I said, I'm going to do it. And I'm terrified, but I want to help people. I'm really great at thriving through uncertainty. 2 of my best years in my agency business were the last recession. And so I just know I've always had that's kind of one of my superpowers and super skills. And I wanted to teach that to others. So it went incredibly well. And since then, I've just gotten pulled in more and more to helping more and more people. And now a lot of women through my mastermind program. And it's just the results that they're getting, it's really transformational, like incredible shifts in their lives and their careers and their businesses. And that's what lights me up. So that's where I know that I'm on track with my purpose, because that's, we talk about ikigai, the Japanese meaning for having a meaningful life of, purposeful life. And I'm like, wow, I think I found my ikigai. So that's what I love helping others do as well, like finding their ikigai and then flying with it.
I love that. I think that's absolutely not only timely, but I think that a lot of people, especially now that we've gone through a year of the pandemic and being shut down, I think a lot of us are really having to draw on the deepest stores and resources within ourselves, and things start to get very clear, right? We've kind of been forced to strip away a lot of the static and the noise, the ambient noise from our lives. And so I love that part of what you experienced was essentially like a calling to service in a way. And I can definitely relate to that. But the other part of it that I really can understand and relate to is that, we hit these moments of extreme challenges and hardships. And so for you, it was losing your grandmother, which is devastating. And I think most of us can relate to. And then it sends you on a spiritual journey. And the reason I think that's so significant is because this is a through line in everything that you do. And I think that a lot of people, I think people get caught up in the notion of spirituality and their brain can't wrap itself around it, or they don't fully understand what they mean by that. But I think that what you're really saying is you get down to who you are and what you're about and what your values are and what your beliefs really are and where your strengths lie. And then you assimilate all of that. And then that becomes your essence, your spiritual journey. So please, tell me how that figures into the work that you do, but also, your feelings on that in general. Because it's not pippy woo woo, it's a real thing.
Yeah, no, and you said it so well. And that's what I say and teach is that, whatever you're doing in the world, your work, your career, your writing, whatever you're putting out there, that is the essence of you. It's a reflection of you. So your work, your career, your business is the path for spiritual growth, because as we evolve, that work evolves and vice versa. So it's not separate, right? So it's all, that's why I say it's a very holistic perspective. So when I start working with people, I always say we start with that alignment piece, which is the persistent mindset, the spiritual alignment, because if we're spinning our wheels over here, and we don't get clear over here with our, purpose clarity, our message clarity, first and foremost, our big why, not just the being of service piece, but also your indulgent why. Like, why is this important to you? Like, what are you trying to do? Maybe you're trying to support your family. So getting all of that clarity, tapping into that vision, and then actually having a plan, right? Because it's one thing to have a vision, but if you don't also have the plan, so that's where, my Shine strategy comes from, is kind of hitting that spiritual alignment side first, so that we're not just ending up in that hustle struggle cycle of spinning our wheels. And then the actual strategy, the steps, the implementation to get to the vision, to get to the other side, to get from point A to point B. So really, when you bring those two things together, you can have a business that feels good, a personal brand that's aligned and authentic, to who you are. And that's the visibility piece. Obviously, with my publicity background, that's a big piece of it, is helping people get visible. So much comes up, so many fears, limiting beliefs, doubts. And I've seen it from unknown underdogs to the biggest celebrities and billionaires. And myself having to I wasn't going to have my photo on my website, by the way, when I started my online business. So I was sorely mistaken, but you would never have seen me doing something like this 4 years ago. I was terrified to put myself out there. So I know what comes up for people, and, in the women that are in my programs, like supporting them and seeing that and using all these skills I've gathered over 2 decades from helping others, helping myself. And really, at the end of the day, that's what we often end up doing is we teach what we need to learn. So yeah.
Well, it's funny. I love that you say that you weren't going to put your own photo up, because I think that everyone is comforted in knowing that we all suffer from the same syndrome. There's a universality of it. And I always joke, it's very much the cobbler's children have no shoes when we treat ourselves a certain way. And what I really find compelling about your program is that we start treating ourselves like the client. And you mentioned this a little bit, because no matter what you're doing, you are the business. You as a person are your business. So make it your priority to service your business. So if that means you have to make yourself your client in a third-party capacity in the way that you approach it, or if you just start to kind of integrate that, it allows you to have a lot more focus and clarity. And I think that's wonderful. What I also love, and so just so other people who are listening, who are watching, Heather is one of the most prepared interviewees I've ever encountered. And I say that with not only respect, but also like I took so many lessons from it. So, we engaged, first of all, I booked an appointment on your website, and you have a special app that programs that, and I got confirmation. And then there was like an intake link that I could click, and I found out some interesting things about myself, because you have a questionnaire to sort of find your superpower. And then my follow-up, in preparation for our interview, you provided me with resources, and you provided me with links to other work you've done and conversation topics. And what I think this all talks to, aside from the fact that it made my life easier, is that you really do have order, and you have organization, and there's a very thoughtful process behind everything that you do. And I think that really comes through and is something that every one of us could use to be successful. So please shine a little more, focus on that. And also, I love the superpower thing. Oh my gosh. I even got a little picture of my superpower.
I love it. I know you're referring to if anyone else wants to take it, my Shine Superpower quiz. So that's just at shinesuperpower.com. And you can find out your visibility style, your superheroine visibility style. And there's 4 main ones. So, and then from there, we can kind of go a little deeper and figure out how do you maximize that? How do you actually, use your specific gifts to get more visible, to get to the next level? So we have people who are, all the way from, where I used to be, hell no, I'm not going to be putting my photo or video out there. But now I'm actually probably one of the highest ones on there, which is the one I'll put myself out anywhere now. So there's sort of this trajectory. So that's, in terms of knowing where you're at on the scale is like, okay, where can I stretch? Where can I grow? And it is never comfortable, right? That's, we always say the magic happens outside the comfort zone. So every step of the way, from putting up my first website to doing my first online summit, to launching a podcast, to, doing more interviews, like I have been terrified every step of the way, but this is what I teach, is that we have to face the fear and move through it to get to the other side, to reach our desires. So that's where the vision it has to be stronger. The vision and passion for what you're doing has to be stronger than the fears. It doesn't mean you're not going to have fears, or I was nervous when we started today. Like, that's normal. We're human beings, and a little adrenaline is good, right? For the energy. But it's just when the fears and the limiting beliefs stop us. That's the thing we don't want to fall into, because then you get that paralyzation. What do they say? Analysis paralysis, where you just don't do anything. And that's when you feel stuck. So that's what we don't want.
Well, it's interesting, because what you're doing, I think a lot of people say, oh, I need to get more visibility, or I need to get my message out there, or, whatever that thing may be. I know in my case, a lot of people come to me and they go, I want to be famous, or I want to be a star. And so those are conversations where I'm like, okay, we have to reverse engineer everything. And really, especially in the case when people say, I want to be famous, I'm like, well, what does that even mean? But doing what, saying what, being what, communicating what? And so it becomes a bit of a stumbling block. And so I'm wondering, what are the big stumbling blocks once you get yourself out of the gate, and hopefully you've gotten your concept of who you are at a minimum, if not a very full picture. Because I think as we continue to grow and evolve, we learn more and more about ourselves, and also the world expands around us and we hopefully meet that. But what are the big, and I'm going to say this is prompted by some of the questions that you sent me, like, what are the biggest like hurdles, mistakes, errors that a lot of us do as we're trying to, get more exposure?
Yeah, I would say that some of the things that I see very frequently, like it's so common that when people come to me, is there are some core issues that almost everyone has, which is one is the fear of judgment, what other people are going to say or think. Another one is sort of that, who am I to be talking about? Am I truly an expert? That sort of imposter syndrome of, do I really have anything to say that's of value? So there's some kind of value worth issues there that come up very frequently. And the big, one that I get a lot is that I'm not ready. But to me, that's just a result of the first couple that we just mentioned, because, you're going to, if you're feeling all this fear come up, of course, you're going to say I'm not ready, but you're never going to be ready, right? I always say with this work, we need to start yesterday. So don't wait, right. Especially when you're trying to grow your audience and get visible and launch things into the world to get your message out there in a bigger way. It starts yesterday or now, and you're building and growing that community, that audience, that network, so that when you do have something to launch, there's actually people there to launch it too. Yeah.
And I think that there's something that I find a lot of people get hung up on is so when we're talking about social media, they want big numbers, right? So they're like, well, I want to have, I don't know, let's an arbitrary number, 100,000 followers. And I always say to them, well, having 100,000 followers sounds great, but if they're not engaging with you, if you're not converting them into customers, depending on what your business model is, it's just a number and it's useless. So I think that there's also I would imagine there's a lot of expectation management that you have to do along with the therapy that you're essentially doing. You're doing coaching, counseling, therapy.
I always say this is not therapy, but and people come because they think they want publicity or visibility when they end up in my realm. And, a lot of the work we end up doing is the alignments of clearing. Like I have a background also in the healing arts and doing energy and body work. So I will say even lately that has been more needed and required from the people showing up, because things are moving and shifting so fast right now. It's like kind of like a moving target, functioning in the world. Like every day it's like, okay, now what do we have to, process and adjust to? So yeah, that's a big part of it.
Yeah. So, okay, if there was one thing that you could go back to, we're going to skip back to you. If there's one thing that you could point to as like a high in your career and something where you would go, well, you know what, I wish that maybe something, and it doesn't have to be an exact precise instance, but you're clearly drawing on the highs and lows of your experiences as a publicist and a marketing person. So I'd love to know what your high and your rose and thorn, so to speak.
I love it. And I do want to quickly address something you just said too, because I think that probably this is applicable to anyone listening today, is that the whole social media thing and followers, a lot of people think it's all about the followers. It's not, it's about the engagement. So even if you have a very small number, say on Instagram, you have 300 friends, 500 friends, if that, I'm talking smaller numbers, that's okay. There are companies that will actually pay you because they consider you what they call now nano influencers, and they'll pay you to do brand collaborations. So that's why I always tell people, if you have a digital presence or platform, just know you are an influencer, whether you think you are or not, because people are watching and listening, and even brands will pay you. There's actually a company, heartbeat.com, out of Venice, California here, that does that. So just to help people know that, yes, you are influencing others if you have any sort of online social presence. And so I guess if we get to highs and lows, oh gosh, is this in terms of being in the online space or just in general?
Yeah, I think we should keep it to the online space because, we don't have to sell your soul just to have the conversation.
I love, that's what I always say. I hope people get visible without selling their souls. Yeah. So I guess I would say the first 2 to 3 years were very challenging. It was, literally like putting myself through online business school and like getting an MBA in online business. And in terms of how much I spent to learn, to get coached, to have my own mentors, I continue to have, my own coaches and mentors because they help me figure it out faster, just like I help the people that show up in my sphere to do things faster and get results quicker. So I would say it was a little bumpy the first couple of years. Like I don't know if there was one like terrible moment. It was just kind of like the up and down of like, just 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. And, but the persistence, again, like knowing like I do practice what I teach, sticking with it and finding the right, coaches and mentors and programs and teachers and being inspired by not just the like we talked about the strategy but also the energy of where are these people coming from. So finding someone like that you resonate with, that really speaks your language, that you just feel like, oh, okay, yes, like this person gets me, they're talking to me. And that's what, when it comes to your marketing, your publicity, your visibility, growing your online business and putting your presence out there in a bigger way, learning the actual language that the people who are showing up for you, what are they saying when they come to you? What are they wanting from you? And then turning around and using that. So an example of that would be like when we started the call today, we were talking about PR and publicity. And if you notice, if you're in my community now, and I do have a free Facebook group where people are welcome to come and get some of my free content there. And it's, and so that's, I should probably just say the Shine Strategy Insiders on Facebook. So if you are, oh my gosh, I just totally lost my train of thought.
I'm trying to back because I was so like in it.
Yeah, yes. I know. I was like, I have like 5 different thoughts going on in my head at once. I'm like, wait, grab that one. So the PR, the example of using that language of publicity, I don't often talk about that in my community now because I think you get a little bit of that. Like, I don't, the people who show up and come into even my free group, they're looking to increase their online presence. They're looking for a bigger audience. They're looking to reach more people. So that's the language that I use in my marketing now, so that I know that the people who are out there looking for what I have, they can find me because they're resonating with the words that I'm using. So for you, any of you listeners out there, like this is exactly what you need to do. And you probably already know it. The people that are showing up, they're already telling you why they like what you have, why they want what you have. And now you want to turn around and use those words back to them in all of your marketing.
Thank you. That I think would be very, very helpful because ironically, when you're increasing your reach, you're having a conversation. You may be having one conversation or you may be having thousands of conversations, but they are still interactions, which is why they're called interactions. And then I'm wondering, like, I feel like everyone's spread pretty thin. And so a lot of the complaints that I hear from people is, I have to do Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Instagram, and then they're chatting and TikToking and clubhousing. And they're just like they feel like their entire life is spent just trying to kind of propagate all of these different places. What do you tell people as far as how far and wide do they need to go?
Yeah, and that's, a very common question because most of the people, especially the women that work with me, they are CEOs. They're the founders of their own thing, their own career, their own business, whatever they're doing. So often, well, the biggest solution is delegation, right? So team, that's actually my word of the year. I'm continuing to try to, find the right aligned people to grow my team in the best possible way. and so I can stay in my zone of genius and just keep delegating so that we can grow and scale and get to that next level. So one big mistake that I often see is that if you're trying to do everything in your business, like, you've got to get support, whether it's even just a free intern. And you don't have to be on every single platform all the time. I like people to have, the women that work with me, I advise that they have at least, some sort of a presence on the key platforms that are out there, such as Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. But it doesn't mean you're giving a ton of love and content to all of those platforms. Maybe you also have a YouTube channel and you've got your LinkedIn page. But it is about picking one platform we call your hero or heroine platform and giving the most love there. And then what you can do as that grows, as you get more comfortable, as your team grows, you can start giving a lot more love to the other places. It's also about not reinventing the wheel. So every time you have one piece of content, you want to, reuse and recycle that across all your platforms. So you're not creating different content for all your platforms. So just really coming down to simplification and working smarter, like knowing where to spend your time and energy. I mean, I've had, women that say, oh, I put 40 hours a week into my Instagram stories and it's not really doing anything for my business. And I'm like, but what if you just did a couple hours on this specific thing and actually got some results and traction, which I've had women do just by putting their energy into more of the publicity side, just even a couple hours a week. Just imagine where you can be in 3 to 6 months. So I think working smarter, delegating, right? And having the people that know how to, laser in on what's the path to get there? What's the smartest way to get there?
Absolutely. Well, I think what we should probably make sure we do now is I want you to give out all of your website information and social so that people can find you, because also I would like for everyone to follow you, because I feel like you've given us a ton of information today, which I hope everyone appreciates, because normally one would pay for all of this great intel. But also, I think that these are these important conversations that they seem like they only apply to business, but it really applies to kind of your whole life, in a way. And, I would say to the person who maybe isn't working right now, or maybe works out of the home or whatever capacity, these are still things on ways that you can kind of function in the world more efficiently. You can work smarter in your own life, even if it's not for your quote unquote business. So critical stuff. I hope everyone's taking away. But back to, how do people find you? How do they sign up for the program if they're interested? Give us a little bit of that again. And
I would love to. And the other thing I just want to go back to quickly was the high. I don't know if I answered that question. I would say, because this is, I'm a walking billboard for what I teach. So when I did put myself out there in a bigger way, like I was sharing that story at the onset of the pandemic, doing a 3-day event, launching a new program. The result of that was people seeing what I was doing, getting invited for my first paid speaking opportunity, getting invited to be on the Forbes Business Council, getting invited to be a contributing writer for Backstage.com, getting invited to speak in other people's Facebook groups and communities. I mean, the list goes on and on. So that's the grace and ease that we want for everyone, is just by some simple aligned visibility through your writing and speaking, you can shift into being a little more reactive in your life and your business and allowing opportunities to come in, because people can actually find you. So I will say that was definitely a high point for me, was like really clicking into that place of not just helping others do it, but also doing that for myself, which felt pretty awesome. So yeah, if you're interested in connecting with me, prstars.net is my website. You can look under the programs there. We are taking applications for our Shine Online Mastermind program. That is for women only at this time. And all my social links are on there as well. Instagram is heather.burgett, Burgett. And yeah, I'd be happy to connect with you anywhere. And my email is heather@prstars.net if you just want to reach out and tell me what's going on for you. And, if you're wanting to get visible, like what's coming up for you, because that's where I'm definitely really good at lasering in with people to clear whatever might be blocking them from that.
Absolutely. I would definitely suggest everyone who is interested to get in touch with Heather. I've been fortunate to refer a couple of people to her over the years, and they all come back. She makes you look good. She makes you look really good when you refer. They come back raving and talking about what a genius I am for knowing her. So, so I can give you the double thumbs up, 100%. Absolutely.
Thank you. I love
Endorsement.
hearing that. Thank you so much.
I want to thank you again for coming and talking to us today. I really appreciate it. I hope everyone will reach out and log on and take a look at everything that you do. I think it really is spectacular and it is special. And then for our Woolfer writers, we are going to welcome Heather into the writers room later on this week. So definitely look on thewoolfer.com to see how you can sign up for that. Would love to have you. And thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We did it.